This episode of Super Pulp Science is brought to you by Edgewood by Kristen Ciccarelli, available wherever books are sold.
Attention, citizens. It's time for Super Pulp Science.
This is Super Pulp Science, where we talk about how genre gets made. I'm Gregory and I'm here with my long-suffering co-host, Justin Curry, known the world over as Chasing Artwork. And we have a special guest on the show today, international best-selling author, Kristen Ciccarelli. Thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
You are right now in a very nice studio space, it looks like. Is this your writing room that we've reached you at?
No. No, this is actually, I'm at my dad's house. So right now, my husband and baby and I are living in an Airstream. So I come to my dad's house. Well, we come to my dad's house when Joe needs to get work done, and then when I need to get work done, and then there's like just a little bit more space for the baby and whoever's watching the baby.
Amenities. Now, I saw on your social media some of this Airstream conversion. You say Airstream, you just toss it off, but it looks pretty sweet in there, I have to say.
It is pretty sweet. Yeah, it's I love it. It's an Airstream Excella 1984. So it's actually 34 feet long. It's, I think, the longest you can get, and I don't think I could be wrong, but I don't think they make them quite that. I think they go to 33 now. So it is pretty roomy for an Airstream. But yeah, my husband like gutted the whole thing and renovated it all, so it's like winterized and everything. We did just buy a house though, so we are moving into a house. But yeah, so we have been living in the Airstream, and
well, now great. You have like a guest house,
right? That's right.
Or a writing retreat. Yes, a writing retreat is what I mean. It's your Fortress of Solitude. Is that what you were building in that?
That's right. My silver bullet Fortress of Solitude.
It's pretty awesome.
So in the interest of full disclosure to our dear listeners, Kristen and I met at the Montreal YA Festival a number of years back. And it was right around the time that our orders had just come in for the Apocrypha baby metal graphic novel that I had done. And also a fair amount of online hatred for me as an individual had shown up. And I dished some of this on we were on our way to an event, and we happened to be sitting together on the bus, I think, that they were taking us to. And I remember you saying like, hey, what's going on? And I was like, well, I think it's my best-selling book ever. And so by extension, the most people ever know about me and therefore hate me. And we started talking a little bit about when the audience grows, what happens. And I found some of your advice very meaningful. You may have just tossed it off as someone who handles that all the time, but it helped me at that time, so I appreciate it. What's it like to have an audience of that caliber, that size, that reach?
So I am very fortunate. I haven't had a lot of hate. I don't think I've really had any hate. I mean, you get like the negative reviews. Like I read a review the other day where I actually love it. It's like a scathing review though, where the author of the review was like, this book is amazing, except for the main character needs to get evicted. And like the whole time was like how much she hated the protagonist, which is like, maybe that's more of a thing that I get, especially like writing YA where it's like female protagonists who kind of drive the story. But yeah, I've been very lucky. So I can't say that I've got a lot of hate. It's actually been, and a lot of my audience is international. I don't know, I don't know what you would say where your audience comes from, but probably even most of my audience is international. And I'm so grateful for my readers. And I do think they're really lovely. So I don't have much to.
Are you pretty active on like Instagram and Facebook and Twitter? Like I feel like that's where most of the online vitriol comes from, because it's like quick and easy to attack somebody there. Writing a review actually takes some time, and most people who are grumpy don't want to take the time to write a full review. They just want to leave a nasty comment and run away.
Yeah. So I am not on Twitter. I have been off Twitter since my debut novel launched. And I think, I don't know what it's like for you guys. The YA sphere I remember talking, actually, no, it wasn't at Montreal, it was in Halifax. It was at HalCon. I was talking to Delilah Dawson about this. So she mostly writes adult fantasy. I think maybe some of her stuff like merges into sci-fi, but and I was talking to her about the need to be on social media and how much I really dislike it, and so many of my peers also really dislike it, but it just feels like it's a necessity. You can't not be there. And for her, like that was kind of like, oh, I remember what that was like. And that's like a YA thing. I don't know, maybe you guys would disagree with her, but she found that being in adult, there was not that expectation. And it anyways, but so like something that's I feel like is turning now is because of all of the hatred. So I got off really early. 2017 was when The Last Namsara came out, and I got off just before then, which like to my publishers, like what?
Is that by
like,
design?
out. What?
Is that by design? Like you got out as a result? Is there a corollary effect? Like, oh, my book's coming out, I got to get out of here, or what?
Okay, so I was the year before my debut novel came out. I was a total mess. Like it was just like my book had sold for quite a bit of money. So there was like very high expectations. It had sold all over the world. So that like even bigger expectations. And so I was like, I was sure it was going to tank. I was sure I was going to get.
Sorry, could you explain, just for the people who don't exactly know about like how advances in the expectation, could you explain that process just for somebody who like hasn't published a book with a,
Sure.
with a publisher, just how that works?
Yeah, you don't have to talk numbers, nothing like that, but just concepts. Yeah.
Okay. So basically advances work differently depending on your publisher. Okay, so just speaking from the YA side of things, if you get a contract from one of the big five, especially, but even like middle, sort of mid-level publishers. So the big five would be like HarperCollins. Sorry, I'm blanking now. HarperCollins,
right?
Penguin Random House, Scholastic. There's maybe four now, actually. There's two that are emerging. Anyway, so kind of big names, you would know them. You're gonna get a bigger advance, and it's basically what happens is so I got a 3-book deal, and basically that advance for like a sizable amount, and then that advance kind of gets chunked up. So usually if you got just for 1 book with a big publisher, again, your mileage may vary, but that advance gets chunked up into 3. So you get part of it on signing, usually half on signing, and then the next half is chunked up between when you hand in the manuscript and it's accepted and goes to copy edits, versus, and then again, when it gets published. So that's like over 2, it can be longer, but over 2 years, basically, you're getting that money. So a 3-book deal, it's even chunked up even more because you're getting a huge amount on signing. And then like for each book, it's like when you hand it in, when it gets published 6 months later. That was my HarperCollins. So it was just like, you're kind of always getting these like little installments over the course of like, for a trilogy, like 5 years. So anyway, so my HarperCollins had given me this like advance, a huge chunk of this huge advance up front. And with that is like this expectation that this book is going to sell really well.
They have to make that back. Whatever, the bigger the advance, the more expectations you have on your story to do well.
Yeah. So, and the thing that a lot of people don't know is that, I'm forgetting the exact stat now, but I think it's like 9 out of 10 or 8 out of 10 books never earn out their advances. It's something like that, or 3 out of 4. It's like that sort of range. So basically the big sellers, so like the Stephen Kings, the Nora Roberts, E.L. James for a while there, those books are actually covering the cost of everything else, or like not everything else, but like a good chunk of everything else. And so yeah, so that it's just kind of it's a very weird business model. So when you don't earn out your advance, it's not necessarily the end of the world, but it does say something to your publisher about like whether they're going to take another chance on you. And other
your next advance as well, right? You'll never get that amount again if you don't earn it back. It'll just go down from there.
And your publisher might never want anything to do with you ever again if you don't earn it out, depending. But yeah, so it's just, so anyway, so there was like all this pressure. It was my very first published novel. And And then, so yeah, so it was just like, I was not sleeping at night. Like my thoughts were looping. I had no idea what was going on. I just thought, I had never experienced anxiety before, at least to this degree. And so it was like, I could not have one-on-one conversations with people because I was like, my thoughts would be looping about other stuff. And like, so I would be there in front of you, but I wouldn't be present. And it was just it was horrible. Like I was having like pain from like grinding my teeth together at night. Like I was not doing well at all. So I basically went off all social media. I think I went off for a month straight. I went off all social media. I like cut out sugar. I went for a 1 hour walk every morning just to sort of like see if I could kick it myself. And then, so I did so well with those habits that I just never went back on Twitter. Because Twitter was the place where it was like the worst, like the most, I would say it's very difficult to be a troll on Instagram. It's not impossible. Way easier to be a troll on Twitter. I'm still on Facebook, but my audience really isn't on Facebook. It's more Instagram that where like my people are. So I'm still on Instagram. But yeah, so I didn't go back on Twitter. And you see a lot of YA authors now, especially women authors, who are just being like, no, like just kind of like their publishers have been like, you have to be on, you have to self-promote yourself. You have to be instantly accessible at all time. And these are like a lot of these women have like small children and have families. And it's like being instantly accessible all the time is just not, like, it's not really healthy. Never mind doable. So you have a lot of authors who now kind of park their Twitter pages, or they, at least in YA, or they have, it's like just promotion. So somebody else is running it, or maybe they're running it, but they're just listing their events, or they're just
yeah, and you'll see on those feeds when it is the author, they'll actually sign the tweet, right?
Yeah.
Like this is managed by so and so it'll be book promotions, it'll be, you know, where the signing is, it'll be, you know, where I am stuff. But then if there's an actual comment from that author, they'll sign it and you'll know like this is them. And you'll see the activity around the signed tweets like explode, because it's like, oh, it's actually the author now, you know, I follow you, I support you, but now is my chance to get instant access. And then the person managing the account will be like, no, the author, it's muted it, like they don't see it now, those responses, you know. And it's like a weird, like, between realm where people want that instant accessibility, but it's not healthy to give it to them, and someone has to manage it. Yeah.
I was listening to one of the podcasts I was listening to before it came on was the one where you both talk about, I think Dan was in there too, but the one where you talk about social media and whether you have to be on social media. I found it really interesting, and I feel like I sided both of you.
First fight, I think.
Oh yeah, is that when we were disagreeing? Yeah. Oh, that's great.
Yeah. No, it was a great conversation. Like I feel like I land more with you, Greg, but I know, like, I also feel like you do have to be there. Like we live in an age where you have to be there in a certain sense.
I think like I'm really lucky. Like my audience and my kind of field of artwork and what I'm appealing is like really an easygoing. There's not a lot of drama or trolling or what. Like I'm in a daisy covered field of the internet as far as comments and that goes. So I feel very lucky that that's where I post my stuff and live.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's like there's this place where I'll like to characterize it like Final Fantasy fans. There's a Venn diagram where people who like Final Fantasy really like the work that Justin's doing, even if it's not directly Final Fantasy related, but there is that group. I see them at the shows, right? They'll talk, you'll see Justin's eyes light up when they talk about some Final Fantasy boss or whatever. It's great. But they'd rather argue about whether or not this character design is awesome rather than whether or not, you know, women should have control over their own bodies, you know, for example. Like these aren't the things that they're being fought about in those public spaces. And so, yeah, he does have it kind of easy. Maybe if you're listening and you would like to send an angry comment to Justin's social media, he can be found at Chasing Artwork all over. Sign it though. Make sure you sign your tweet.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Okay, let's go. I want to go back in time. We've been doing this in a few interviews where I asked the people to go back in time to that moment before. So you don't have an agent yet, you don't have a book deal, you don't have any of those things, but you come to writing on your own. Everyone comes in their own way to putting their thoughts on the page. How did that start for you? What is that journey like before the business side, before the juggernaut of international publishing says, ooh, do it for us? You did it for yourself. What was that like?
Yeah. So, well, I've been writing stories since I was a very little kid. My cousin and I, we grew up on the same farm together. Sort of like it was like kind of like a compound. When you describe it, it sounds that way. But like my whole family lived on a farm. And it was one of the things that we did like when we were bored. Like it was like a form of playing. So we would get off the bus and we would I would bring out this old, I think it was a Dell laptop that my dad gave me from work, his old laptop.
Those huge gray ones that are like 70 pounds.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. And I would type my story on there, and then he would be writing in his notebook, and that's just sort of how we spent the afternoons. But it was always just like this thing that you did as kids. And even I did it in high school too, but I never thought an author was something that you could be like as a career, as like something that made you money and put food on the table. And maybe it's hard to be that thing, but it wasn't like you grow up to be a fighter or you grow up to be a lawyer or any of those things. So when I went away to college, I just sort of left it behind and I just stopped writing altogether. I think this is a pretty common story for a lot of writers and artists. And I was just doing my thing at college, and I was pretty unhappy. And I thought I wanted to go into like a social service field, like social services or social work. And I remember one summer I got an internship at like my ideal agency. Like I just loved this agency, and I thought it would be like the dream job. Is exactly where I wanted to work. I got the interview, I got the job, the internship anyway. And then I got to the job and I absolutely hated it. I would like show up at my desk every day, and it was kind of like it was an office job basically. And it was like this tiny little room, and there was no windows, and it was like deep, like air conditioning, like crazy, like it was the middle of the summer, and it just felt like you were in the North Pole. And it was just like, you didn't really see other people at all. And I would get to my desk every day and I would just kind of cry like a lot of the time. And so while I was there, I had started reading YA fantasy again, but basically fantasy, which I had read growing up. And I had stumbled on this author, Kristen Ciccarelli, who she wrote Graceling. It's a typical sort of high fantasy YA, before YA really boomed, or maybe at the cusp of the boom. And basically she had a blog. I Googled her name, and she had a blog, and she would just sit there and write about being a writer. And like and so I was reading her blog every day. And I was just like, this author is a real person. Like this is a person, a human being. Like I'm not that different from this person. And then it was like, maybe I could do this too. And so I started writing again, and I had basically found an old story that I had only written half of, from when I was like 17, 18. And I really loved it. And so I just finished it. And then it was only at that point that I was like, okay, maybe I could try getting this published. And from there, it was a very long journey. So that first story, that one that I just mentioned, is basically the very first like seed of The Last Namsara. I rewrote it several times over the course of 10 years and over the course of like 2 agents, and like almost getting a book sold that was a different book, and then not having the editor. So I got an agent with that first book, The Last Namsara, the first version of The Last Namsara, and we took a different book out on sub, and the editor really wanted it, but it wasn't quite where her publishing team wanted it to be. So we actually worked together on it for a year on spec, and I revised it 3 times with her, and then there was a final like, no, we're not buying this. And then when my agent took it back to read to see over.
Don't leap over that moment. I don't mean to step over you, but I know to you this seems like the past and you can move on, you can drive on, but I think there's a moment where a person has put in a year of time on spec, has rewritten every book is a love affair in a way, relived it 3 times.
Yeah.
And then told no.
Yeah.
Well, what is that like? Tell me what that is like.
So, okay. So it gets worse than that. So it's like so like all of that work, it's like, okay, first of all, like I can't over a year, over three different tries with an editor who was like on my side. Like she totally believed in the story. She wanted it to get to where it was supposed to be. I was like, clearly I just can't do this. But then when my agent read it, because she was like, she could easily take it out again, right? So now it was like super polished. And she had just gone on a small round of submission. So I think we submitted it to like 5 or 6 editors, whereas like you could have gone much bigger than that and on more rounds. So she read it and she's like, I can't take this out. This book has lost its heart. And I was like, it lost its heart. Like, I didn't know what that meant. And then also like, because I mean, it's like kind of vague, but then also it's like, not only did I not make this better, I actually made it worse. And so yeah, so I definitely had like, that was my like dark night of the author soul moment, where I was like, you know what, maybe this isn't for me. And I enrolled in a ceramics program. I was like, okay, I'm going to go do ceramics because clearly I'm not cut out to be an author. And yeah, that was like, it had a significant impact because I had this old manuscript, this like dragon rider manuscript that I mentioned at the beginning. And so I had been doing while I was working with this editor, I was also working on another book with an author that I really loved. Her name's Franny Billingsley, and I knew she did private mentorships that are kind of like based off of MFA program style mentorships. And so I had reached out to her around the same time, like just before all of the heartbreak, asking her if I could do a mentorship with her, working on a different book. And so I did that, or I was doing that. And so basically, I had just finished up this manuscript, and then my agent, who told me that basically what is Edgewood now, the book that's coming out in a couple months, although it's revised several times and very different, but what is now Edgewood lost its heart. After she said that, I revised it again for her, and then she told me that she was leaving publishing. So oh yeah, so it just gets worse. So she as she left publishing, she's like, okay, I'm gonna like recommend you to all of my agent friends, and I'm sure you'll land on your feet. It's gonna be fine. All of her agent friends. So I gave them this new manuscript because I just felt like I was done with Edgewood, this book that had lost its heart.
Were you able to get like more actionable critiques than it lost its heart? Like that's so vague. I wouldn't know what to do with that.
No, like
oh, okay, great.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Yeah, no, I know it was, and I think in my agent, like she was very burned out. I just said she left publishing. She could not. She was just the especially YA, but I think probably the whole industry is just. It does kind of suck you in and spit you out. Like it's very hard. It's very competitive. You have to be hustling all the time. And so she's not the first agent that left. And so I do think she was burned out. I think she was just done. So that could have been part of it. Yeah, so my agent's leaving. She recommends me to all of her agent friends. I get like bumped to the top of their slush piles. They all reject me. And this is the new manuscript. This is the Dragon Rider manuscript that I've revised with Franny Billingsley. So I feel like this one maybe has a better chance. And they all reject it. And so then I'm like, okay, that summer, I'm like, I'm done. I'm gonna pivot. I'm gonna do ceramics. I'm gonna do pottery, because I'm not cut out for this. But just before I do that, I'm going to submit this manuscript to something. It was a contest called Pitch Wars. I don't know if you guys have heard of it. It's really big in the YA scene.
Yeah.
And basically, you submit your manuscript to this like. There's all of these mentor teams, and all the mentor teams are made up of published authors. So I submitted mine, and you pick your top ones and like maybe the first 10 pages of the manuscript. I can't remember how much you submit. And it goes to them and they read all of these submissions, kind of like an agent. And then they pick one writer's manuscript and they mentor them for 2 months. So they give them an edit letter and they're kind of cheerlead them and stuff. And then it goes to an agent round. And there's like all of these agents who have kind of bought into this contest, who know that these manuscripts are sort of already the better ones. And then they've also been worked on with these published authors for 2 months. So they're going to be good, or like, hopefully they're going to be good, that they can just take them out on submission kind of, or like without too much editing. So it's kind of a popular contest. It's hard to get into. So I was like, this is it. I just kind of threw it out there. I think I applied like 20 minutes before the thing closed, like the application period closed. And then, and I totally forgot about it. Oh, go ahead.
What I find really interesting about this is you had already received a crushing amount of disappointment and criticism. And your way to deal with it was, why don't I give it to a whole bunch more people to criticize a bunch in like an open arena where books are battling to the death for attention? Like, I find this to be an interesting facet of your personality, is that even in this disappointment, I'll let the book fight for its own life again.
Yeah, I've not thought about it that way. I'm not sure why. I think, yeah, I don't know.
But also, like, sometimes it's just a matter of you need the right eyes on it, and they have to be, you know, in the right mood that day. Like, there's a lot of factors that go into like a book getting picked up and liked by the right person. And even like resubmitting the same book to the exact same agent, like a couple months later, might get a different response than like the first one. Like,
absolutely.
There's just so, like, you know, if it fails the first time, the people who give up, I wish they, you know, I wish they do what you do. They just, you know, keep trying, keep applying, because you just need that one yes after. Yeah. And it's mostly going to be no's, but that one yes is out there. You just got to keep looking for it.
Yeah. And I would say along with that publishing, like, the people who survive, who like make it is in square quotes or scare quotes, who are successful are not the most talented, or not necessarily the most talented. They're people who persist and persist and persist. And that's really what it is. Like, it's so much of it is luck, so much of it is timing. And you, in order to get the luck and the timing, you have to just keep picking yourself up again and keep going. That's not what I was doing at this point in time, though. I was ready to give it up. But so anyways, okay, so just to finish that story, because I'll bring it back around to like the rejection and like what you were just saying, Justin. So a month after I'd submitted it, Joe and I were on vacation in Nova Scotia, and we were like in the middle of nowhere. We had no internet. And I was so convinced that nobody was going to pick this manuscript. I had just literally thrown it off and was like, okay, I'm done now. And then we went into town one day, and all of a sudden my phone was like blowing up with notifications. And I was like, what is happening? And so basically these two authors, New York Times bestselling authors, Renee Adia and Tracy Chi, had chosen my book and were going to mentor me. And so it was like, okay, wow. But even then, so even though I had made it into this contest that was hard to get into, even though these two authors were like taking time out of their lives, like a lot of time out of their lives to like believe in me and my book and help me make it better, I still had this, I was so defeated. I could not see the light. Like, I was like, there's just no way. Like, I was so kind of beaten down. Sorry, I feel like I'm getting kind of emotional now. And I just remember there's like a point in that mentorship where like they would get on as soon as I was like having a day where I was like, I think this is not going to go anywhere. Like, this is pointless kind of. They would get on the phone with me, or they'd get on Skype with me, and they'd be like, that is not true, or whatever it was. And I reached a point where I was like, okay, I am like disrespecting them and their belief in me by like not believing in myself at this point. Like, and if I can't believe in myself, then I can believe in their belief in me, which kind of sounded strange. And like, so that is sort of like, they were kind of like my life raft out of that place. And yeah, and so we went to the agent round. I had 5 agents who wanted the book. They offered within like the first week of the agent round. I think they weren't allowed to offer in the first 3 days or something like that. And then I chose one. A couple of months later, we lightly edited it. My agent took it out on submission. It sold within a week. It was going to go to auction because we had so many editors interested. My editor at HarperCollins said, put in a preemptive offer, which basically means she offered a big sum of money and was like, you either take this and we don't go to auction by the end of the day, or it's off the table and we just go to auction and we're going to offer less. So basically that's what a preempt is, I guess. I guess you do.
Power move. They made a power move to get it. Yeah.
So obviously we went with them, and then like a couple weeks later it sold in the UK in auction, and then it sold in all these other places. And the strange thing was like part of why I was so with my mentors, I was so defeated, was like that book, I had not only had all these referrals to these agents so made it to the top of the slush pile, but I had been querying it at the same time. And I think I racked up like 88 rejections on that manuscript. So even before it got to this contest, I was like, half of these agents have rejected this book already, like the agents in the agent round. And it just didn't matter, right? Like it went on to sell in this huge way. And so it's like, yeah, I mean, so just like persistence is key, more so than talent. Hard work and picking yourself.
I also think there's a moment that you've already underlined, that it's okay if you don't have belief in yourself. If you have people around you, that you trust, you can trust their belief in the thing you've done.
Yeah. And sometimes you have to, because sometimes you're so like, you don't see yourself and your work clearly enough.
You're in the forest.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the forest for the trees. Yeah. You know.
Wow.
Sorry, that was a really long-winded way of saying that exact thing.
No, but what's great about the context of that is when you say something like, oh, I felt a lot of pressure because a lot of money had been paid. The money is incidental in the actual buildup of the layers of pressure and anxiety and emotion and like before the moment that now business has taken over. There was so much more than just the business aspect riding on this for you. That's more of it. That's not a question. That's just my observation of it. So then you can probably look to some shelf somewhere, either in your Airstream or I'm sure in a parent's house where you are now, that has a collection of these works in, what is it, up to 12 languages. It's everywhere. People are reading the story. They're connecting with the story. They're reviewing the story. Although we did find one funny review about it, that it doesn't have a love triangle. Seems to be like a common, people like there's love in it, but no love triangle. And I don't know.
Good or a bad thing. It depends on the person.
We couldn't figure that out. We couldn't figure out.
As I was Googling, it was just one of the most frequently asked questions was what is the romance? And the answer was there is romance, but there's no triangle. Yeah. They seem to really want there to be a love triangle in the book. And
so there's a sliver of the internet that really wants a love triangle. But we're digressing a little bit. The idea here is that it exists now. It's survived the arena. It's out in the world.
And I love that agents that had rejected it then bid on it later on, like in the same book, right? Like
it wasn't necessarily the same agents who rejected it, but I did get a ton of agents who had rejected it when the news hit, like when they saw it in the Publishers Weekly or whatever, emailed me and was like, I am so glad that this found a spot, because I'm so glad that this found the right place, because I really wanted to, but for this reason I couldn't, or I was just starting my list and I just couldn't handle another, like there's like, again, like what you were saying, like agents are people, they're human beings, they have stuff going on. So just because they reject your book right now, it's not necessarily because of your book, it's because of what is going on with them.
Also what you were saying at the beginning of the podcast too, how 4 out of 5 books might not make their the money back. Like there's so much risk in picking a project. Like they need to be really choosy about what they invest in, because it's hard to make money off books.
And agents themselves are now being represented. They're sitting in the meeting and they're like, oh, I have, we've put 15 books out and only one of them has made money, right? like that's a pressure on those agents also. And so this whole thing, I'm reminded of a story from way back, the Wayback Machine for me anyway. My mom and I were in Phoenix somewhere and we were at some, those shops that sell all like geology stuff. There's like stones and geodes and all this kind of stuff. So there's a lot of that stuff in Phoenix. My mom was a stained glass artist, so she would use these slices of agate, raw agate, and put it into her stained glass. So we were going to look for this. And we were standing there and there's a tumbler, and I'm not really familiar with all of this stuff. So there's this big drum that tumbles stones. And that's how you get all these polished rocks that people like, tourists like to buy these fancy stones all polished. And my mom was talking to the guy and she's like, oh, it's such a shame you have to polish them. The raw stones are so much more beautiful. And the guy, the gemstone guy, he's like, you understand that. And I understand the beauty of the raw thing. But the average person just wants something smooth to fit in their hand. And she said, oh, that's very much like the art world. She was starting to get into doing galleries and things like that. She's like, that's the feedback I'm getting from the galleries, is that people just want something smooth. They want it a certain way. They want it the way it's always being presented. And that lesson has kind of sat with me for a long time, that the work you make comes out raw. And the process of bringing it to people sometimes, not always, but sometimes, is like just going into that tumbler. And it's mixing with all the other stones of a similar type until all the raw edges are gone. And I think maybe that's where the heart disappears sometimes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And the stones that come out of that tumbler, where a vein is still open and raw, where it's still rough, they would separate in this gem store. And he said, what's interesting is that people like these ones more, where the flaw shows. I can't plan the flaws. He's like, we can't plan the flaws. If I could plan the flaws, I could sell so many more of these stones, but you can never plan them. They just come out of the tumble. And I think about that in writing and art a lot, that the mistake we make, or the thing that separates it, is often the part we fought for, that people see as raw, that we don't want to change. So what is your new process like? You're working, Edgewood is coming out, or is available now for pre-order, I think.
Yeah, pre-order. It just got pushed to March 1st because of the shipping shenanigans.
Yeah, shenanigans. Yeah, supply chain. What was that process like, of getting it through this long life into the world? And what is your writing process like around the release of a new book? It's sort of a folded question. You have a new book coming out. Tell us about that. Then tell us how it affects your writing.
It's funny, like I find, like, when I have a new book coming out, sometimes I almost forget what it's about, because I wrote it so long ago, and like I'm already on to the new thing. So I feel like I'm right now for Edgewood, I am mostly in like promotional mode. I mean, I should be in promotional mode, but I'm actually on deadline for another book that I sold to my editor. It's a duology. So right now I'm sort of trying to fit drafting a brand new book into promoting this book that comes out in March. So okay, so Edgewood is actually that first book that lost its heart. And I mean, it's obviously, I wrote it 10 years after that first book. So I wrote it after I'd written a whole other trilogy. I'm obviously a different writer now, so it's a different book.
So just to clarify for somebody who maybe doesn't understand, it's the idea, it's the story, it's the concept that you then rewrote as a fresh manuscript, or it's a rewrite of the old manuscript?
It's a rewrite of the old manuscript, but it still hits all of the beats that made the heart that didn't exist, or like the heart that got written out or something. It's still like those beats are still in there. I had a difficult time writing it because it had this original, like it has a ghost almost, like it has a different form walking around, kind
That's
of.
how you should market it, Edgewood, the haunted book.
The book with baggage.
Right? The haunted book, Ciccarelli's haunted book. That's how I'm going to talk about it from now on, just so you know, the haunted book.
I think so I actually started writing that book when my grandfather, I grew up in his house, and he and my grandmother raised me alongside my mom. My mom was working nights. She worked long shifts and she worked at night, and I was just a kid, so I had to go somewhere else at night. And so I actually had a bedroom in my grandfather's house until I was married at 24. So I like, my grandfather was like one of my caregivers growing up, and when he started forgetting my name, that's when I started writing the book. And I was like, because it was kind of like a way, I saw it as like, okay, I'm about to lose this man, and I'm not ready to lose him, so I'm going to write him into a story, and then I can keep him forever. Or that was like in my head, in my like 24-year-old head, that was like how I coped, basically. And so, and I wasn't a good enough writer to write that book then, and in a lot of ways. And so that is why I had such a tough time with it. And so it's been 10 years. My grandfather has passed away, and I've had a lot of time to sort of grieve and process it all, as well as some other things. And so I could rewrite that book in a different way, from a different perspective, and have it still be, in some ways, it's a tribute to my grandfather. Part of the book is about like the shadow side of achieving your dreams. So becoming a published author, like, you think it's a destination, you think it's like, it's the and it's a destination, it's your dream come true for a lot of people. It's a great place to be, and I wouldn't want to be anywhere else, but it has these costs, right? Like I assume you guys, or maybe I'm assuming too much, but like achieving your dreams comes with a shadow side. And so I wanted to explore that in the book too, which I obviously couldn't have done 10 years ago. So it is that same, like the spark of inspiration was my grandfather and the woods behind his house. It's called Edgewood. So it's this town of Edgewood, which is based on where I grew up. And the woods are potentially magical. And so her grandfather goes missing and she has to go into the woods, and she finds out that this Fae king has stolen him, her grandfather, who is forgetting her. And so it's a lot about forgetting and dementia, but mostly forgetting. And then also it's a lot about what do you do when you achieve your dream and it's like maybe not what you thought it would be. So yeah, I don't know if that answers the question.
No, it does. We've talked a lot. Well, there's two things I can unpack out of there. One of them is we talk a lot about when you're ready to write a book you have an idea for years ago. Right. You know, both Justin and I are tackling projects now that 10 years ago, they were ideas for us that we could not have accomplished. But now maybe we're good. Maybe we're good enough writers.
We weren't ready for that book, but now maybe we are.
Maybe we can pull them off. So we have projects like that. But the other side is that making the book is personal and marketing the book is that's the shadow side for me, right? Like turning that thing, which is personal, trying to turn it into money. That's like, what?
We've monetized our hobbies. The thing that we used to do as relaxation and release and for fun is now it's now our job. It's our full-time job. So any piece of artwork, you have to think about, okay, I want to make this, but also how can I sell this and make money off of it?
And if we were tech companies, right, we'd say that we all receive, like when we get our advances, that's like getting your Series A. But you owe that money back, right? It's not just free money, right? You owe it to the investors. And in our case, that's the publishers. Or even if we just talk about strictly about the investment of time and attention that people pay to it, that's an investment that you kind of owe people. The follow-up book, the follow-up work, their expectation of what's going to be next. The dark side for me is I keep switching genres. I keep switching the kinds of books it is. So if someone's like, oh, that time travel one's great, when's your next sci-fi thing? And I'm like, oh, it's actually a fantasy. Or like, you know, I shake off a lot of people who are like, ooh, I like this one. When are you doing another one like that? And I'm like, I already did that one. I'm doing something else now. Right. And that for me, that's my dark side, is that I don't mean to be dismissive of people who liked the last thing I did, but I'm in love with the new thing I'm doing. Yeah. And that's hard to market. So yeah, I get that. I have really enjoyed our conversation, Kristen. I hope that we can visit in again on your next project, and that you're willing to share a little bit about that process and conversation with us. As we wrap things up, can I mention that I know secretly you've also been working on some comics, and your brain is in the comic space, and that you have been rolling over some of that. I don't know what you're ready to talk about or how well, but I just want, listeners to know that there are more horizons for you yet to tackle. And one of them is the graphic novel space.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was something that I never thought I could. I just never thought, it wasn't within my realm of possibility until I met you, actually, Gregory. And we had that conversation on the bus, and then we had that lovely night at the pub. That was the highlight of that festival for me. We went out to this pub, and there was like a trad band, right? And we were all sitting around. I was having a bourbon. I don't remember what you were drinking, and then we came up with
singing like sailor tunes, rowdy sailor tunes, and thumping tables. And
this sounds great.
Yeah. And it was like an old school pub. So it was like these little rooms, like with stone arches around us. And we were just talking about like what art is for. And, we got into, and I still have those pages that we hashed out for our little story there. So we'll have to figure out something to do with that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think so we never finished it. And that's totally on me. And I think I was just like, I was so intimidated. I did not, this was a whole other medium. It was like out of my league sort of. And so, but I mean, I'm starting, so I'm dipping my toes in. So I would love to revisit it if you wanted to at some point. But so basically I had written this proposal for a YA. It's sort of like Final Fantasy inspired. It's like everything I love about Final Fantasy I had put into this
Look
book.
at Justin. Look at him. He's
Yeah, well, as soon as you mentioned Final Fantasy and Justin at the beginning, I was like, oh, I need to check out his art. So I'd written it as a YA novel, and everyone who read it was like, I feel like this has a different, like, I feel like it should be a comic, or I feel like it should be a graphic novel. And I was like, what? And I just kept getting that feedback from my agent, from like some of my beta readers. And I was like, okay, I guess maybe I could try it. So basically with like the encouragement of these people, I turned it into a script, or it's a proposal for a script. So it's like a synopsis, and then like sample pages. So I'm still working on that. So I'll let you know what happens.
all right. Now there's people around you whom you trust, who are believing in your work, despite what you see as maybe you're not ready, or maybe it's not. I see a pattern here, but you can learn from a previous event, I think, to know that if the people around you think you're doing the right thing, you should probably just let her rip, right?
Yeah, and there's so much freedom in that too, right? Like, it's like, yeah, there's no harm in trying. There's no harm in trying something different. There's no harm in stepping off the ledge and seeing what happens.
Well, and what's great in making comics or working on a graphic novel, if it's a short form, the artist that you come to rely on is somebody who is there not just as like an interpreter of the work, but as a cheerleader of the work. They'll look for that rough edge, they'll look for that heart, and they'll look for the part that you can't quite say with words, but they might be able to say with color, with form, with repetition, with a pattern, and you can get at something that the words alone can't get. A long form novel can give you so much more insight on a character, on an experience, on a lived experience of the author, sort of transmuted through the words into you. But in a comic, you can turn a page and feel something immediately and know that it's transmitted right from the heart of the writer and the artist. And I think that they're different mediums, but they have a very powerful magic. So welcome to the club, I would say.
Thank you.
Well, this has been Super Pulp Science, where we've talked about how genre gets made. I'm Gregory Kmichuk, encouraging you all to join the fight and make comics.